Welcome into the Minnesota basketball party. Shake off your candy hangovers. It's time to talk Wolves, as we do every Wednesday here on Locked On Sports Minnesota.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota basketball party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy November. And welcome to the Minnesota basketball party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Wolves talk every Wednesday. We're diving into the Minnesota Timberwolves 1 and 2 start. I am Sam Ekstrom, the host of the show, joined as always by Reggie Wilson, KARE 11 Sports Director, Ron Johnson, former NFL and college wide receiver, Jack Borman, Canis Hoopus, and Ben Beacon, Locked On Wolves daily host. This show brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. $150 if your team wins. FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Time now for our new segment, the opening tip. What are these guys thinking as we go into week 2 of Wolves basketball? Reggie, kick it off.
Will the real cat please stand up? What's going on with him? Why is it taking them so long to get going this season?
And Anthony Edwards is leading the team in points, but also assists. We have to find a way for Mike Conley to be able to be a better facilitator because the Nuggets are coming to town, and we know that's going to take an entire team to even be close to winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think so far this season, Rudy Gobert has been the Timberwolves' best and most consistent player. It's exactly what the Wolves expected when they traded for him. He has 3 double-doubles. There's been a lot of volatility from the two guys that are supposed to be the superstars, Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. Even Mike Conley's been up and down, as Ron mentions. McDaniels has only played in 1 game. Rudy Gobert has been the Wolves' best and most consistent player so far, and it's a little bit ironic given the Wolves' struggles through 3 games.
And despite the Timberwolves adding more veterans to this team and preaching that there would be an improved offensive process, we haven't seen it yet. In the Timberwolves shot selection, in the flow and the structure of their offense continues to be just a major problem for this team.
Good teases for what you're going to hear throughout the rest of the show here on the Minnesota basketball party. You can watch us on Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. Please subscribe. It's free. And also find us free and available on the Locked On Wolves audio feed, wherever you get your podcasts. And you might even stumble on this show on the 24/7 YouTube live stream on Locked On Sports Minnesota as well, with all of the Minnesota local shows rotating around the clock. So you can watch us at 3 a.m., 3 p.m., noon, midnight, whatever you want. Let's dive in, fellas. Last week, we did a show. The Wolves had yet to play a game, but they were perfect in the preseason. Optimism was high. And then they went to Toronto. And then they bounced back against Miami. And then they stubbed their toe in a terrible way at Atlanta on Monday. They're 1-2 with a big blown lead on Monday night that's kind of souring, I think, the way this first week went. Reggie Wilson, what happened?
As you alluded to, that third quarter, man, continues to be a problem. And I saw a lot of people getting on Chris Finch about it because it seems that he is content to let his guys figure it out. He's like, look, they got to mature at some point. Like they gotta get it together at some point. And everybody else is just like, call the timeout, bro. Get them reset. Because heat check time is upon us. So I think that's the crazy part. When Murray was going off, like he didn't really do much to try to stop it. And those guys were kind of sputtering a little bit. Anno forced some stuff, Cattle forced some stuff. And I just don't know that is the approach to have with a team like this, who obviously still needs some more help as far as trying to get them to where they should be. So I feel bad because I went on KARE 11 and I was like, yeah, they're going to be a 4 seed. They're going to start strong. It's going to be great Timberwolves season ahead. And then ever since then, they've made me look like a buster on TV. I don't like looking like a buster on TV.
Ron, what do you make of it?
When you look at the start, and again, Anthony Edwards being a facilitator in this offense, he's the primary ball handler for a lot of the offensive possessions. I think it can work, but I'm not a fan of it long term. Why? You're wasting a lot of energy bringing the ball up. You're wasting a lot of energy trying to get the offense going. I understand the thought because we said he has to touch the ball every time down the court. But I look at teams like the Warriors. Draymond Green brings the ball up the court. Why? Because it allows Steph to get down, kind of get his bearings together, relax him and Clay, and then get the offense going. It doesn't have to be Anthony Edwards. The point of Mike Conley Jr. as a point guard is to have him facilitate and bring the ball up. I want to see that more. I think Anthony Edwards can find his spot. He can still get the ball after it's brought up the court. But I think if Mike Conley can early see it, like he brings us down early on, okay, I like this matchup with Cat. I'm going to go to Cat in the post, and we're just going to play pickup basketball type. I'm going to take the mismatch. And then Anthony Edwards, I see you over here in the corner. I'm going to get it to you first, and then you do what you got to do. But him bringing the ball up the court, being the primary ball handler a lot, I think it's making him think he has to drive and dish. You look early on, he was driving, he was going, and then down the stretch, there was nobody else that he can get going. I think Mike Conley is a better facilitator to get the rest of the team going long term. And like you said, Sam, third quarter, whether it's you start Anthony Edwards in the first quarter to get him the ball a bunch, and then second quarter, third quarter, you go back to Mike Conley Jr. But they got to find some other way to get Anthony Edwards involved in the game because I like Rudy Gobert. I like Karl Anthony Towns. I just think Anthony Edwards needs to be an off-ball guy, not an on-ball guy, because he is not a true point guard. And you can tell as the game goes on, his decision-making. I think you said he's forcing a lot of stuff. It's just like, hey, well, I'm bringing it up. I feel like I can take this guy one-on-one. I'm going to take him. And then it doesn't work. So I think Mike Conley is a little bit more level-headed. He's a little less likely to do some crazy stuff. But I get it. And I'm watching a little bit of the game now. But Anthony Edwards has to be able to be an off-ball guard more than not and let Mike Conley Jr. Those assists to me, way too high. Way too low for Mike Conley when you look at the weapons around him.
Yeah, 11 assists in 3 games, not a very big number. Ben, sort through this with us. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as always, it's multiple issues, right? So for as good as the game was against Miami, we can, they really didn't pull away till the second half against a shorthanded Miami team. But really the second half against Miami and the first half against Atlanta is it's beyond what I think Chris Finch drew up. I mean, the offense was just unbelievable for the second half on Saturday, first half on Monday, and then things completely ground to a halt. And we can go back to what the issues were opening night in Toronto, lack of ball movement, as Finch likes to say, and Conley said post-game on Wednesday last week, the ball got sticky, right? And so that's problem number one. And then that kind of leads into one of their biggest issues from last season, which has been an issue in all 3 games so far this year, which is bad transition defense. In the first half against Atlanta on Monday, Atlanta had just 4 fast break points, and the number I had for the second half for them was 15 points in transition against the Wolves. And I think the stagnant offense kind of feeds into the poor transition defense. And then there's, both literally, and then also I think there's like this kind of pall that hangs over the team, like, oh man, the ball's not moving. Nobody's really ready to get back. And then you don't get back and they get lob dunks. And then it feels like you're playing the Globetrotters. And then it gets worse and worse and worse as snowballs from there. So I think transition defense to me is my biggest concern overall, but the lack of ball movement on offense, it's something that going back to last year, I've been saying like, eventually, they'll figure this out. They've got enough pieces offensively. Chris Finch is supposed to be and I think is a really intelligent offensive mind. That's what he's been known for. It's his calling card. And again, 3 games into the season, so there is plenty of time to figure it out. But it is one of those things where like they're going to have to make a little progress. And Finch likes to put up, as he says, bumpers or guardrails and let them figure it out. They're going to have to be a little bit more structured, I think, to make sure that they improve offensively, and then also just play better, like play harder in transition to get back and prevent easy buckets for the other team. And that's how things snowballed on Monday against the Hawks, really, in the second half.
Jack.
Yeah, and sticking right there with the transition defense, just to follow up on that, one thing is that you see guys crashing the offensive glass on shots that they have no chance of getting a rebound for, and then all of a sudden it's a 5-on-3 or a 4-on-2 going the other way, which has been a huge problem. But for me, the biggest problem has been the Timberwolves' offensive approach, and that the Timberwolves, just in terms of you look at their shot profiles and where they're getting most of their shots, they're 21st right now in shots at the rim. They're 4th in mid-range shots, while being 23rd in mid-range shooting percentage. And then they're 19th in 3-point 3-point frequency, but they're 11th in 3-point accuracy. So, and that's with Karl Anthony Towns shooting 4 of 17 to start the season. So the Timberwolves just aren't doing a good enough job of generating, open 3-point shots, because they do have a lot of really good shooters that are capable of, getting hot. We saw Ant make 4 threes in the first quarter against Atlanta. We saw Naz make 3. I mean, they made 10 threes in the first quarter of that game. And the other thing too is that the Timberwolves are tied for last in free throw attempts with the Denver Nuggets. And that's just something for a team that's trying to impose its will and be big and be physical. That's just something that has to be better. The fact that the Timberwolves are getting significantly less shots at the rim when either Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Edwards are on the floor is, I think it is horrifying if you're a Timberwolves fan, because those two guys, when they're on the floor, that's like the best part of their game, right? Is when Karl Anthony Towns is out there as the 5. We saw the driving element of his game really become quite potent 2 seasons ago. And he's gone to that. He went to that quite a bit in the preseason when he was the 5 and hasn't gotten back to that as much. And then with Ant, he's just not getting into the paint, collapsing the defense and kicking it out to other guys that are then attacking closeouts and getting to the rim. And when Ant is getting to the rim, he's missing shots at the rim like crazy. So, I think the Timberwolves have a lot to figure out offensively. And to Ron's point, I think a lot of that has to do with, Mike Conley has to be more assertive in getting guys set up and maybe kind of telling Finch to back off and let me kind of call some stuff out here that I think can get these guys going, because he's been in the league now for 15, 16 years. And, he's supposed to be that coach on the floor. And I completely understand and I'm empathetic to the fact that he had food poisoning in that Atlanta game and was very much not himself. But moving forward, I think that's something that they should look to get into more.
Yeah, he was kind of floating around like we saw early in his tenure with the Wolves after he got traded, where he wasn't really making much of an impact. And I found myself craving Jordan McLaughlin, like when he was kind of that stretch where the offense was so smooth with him on the floor. I know he's not necessarily a big part of this rotation right now, but just something to provide stability. Speaking to that Karl Anthony Towns point of not driving, he's got 4 free throw attempts in 3 games. That's way too low. And he's averaging way under a point per shot attempt. Extremely inefficient ball from Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know if he's the lone man to point the finger at, but we heard some glowing praise about Rudy Gobert from a couple of our guys here in our opening tip. Ben, I think you spoke to that. Rudy Gobert with a good start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really, really, really good. He has I think like 7 or 8 blocks over the 3 games. He's got a double-double in every game. He's getting to the line quite a bit. I don't think he shot a free throw in the Miami game, but he had 11 free throws in the Atlanta game and 6 or 8 against Toronto. So it's been remarkably consistent if you're just looking at the box score. But the way that he's played on both ends of the floor, I think the word I used on Locked On Wolves was spry. Like, he looks like the Rudy that like from 3 years ago that started to become an all-star at age 27 and was a multi-time all defensive player of the year, or a defensive player of the year award, I should say, on both ends. Like, he's part of it is the Wolves are looking for him. Yes. But remember early last season, the Wolves were forcing the ball into Rudy to their detriment. It's one of the reasons the offense was so bad at times last year is they were just like they were posting him up and they were doing these things that Rudy's never been all that great at. And now this year they're just looking for him and they're not forcing it. That's partly the Wolves offense, but it's also partly Rudy being in the right place at the right time, catching those lobs. There's obviously more chemistry between Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert than there ever was between D'Lo and Rudy. And also the Cat Rudy pairing, like that's a whole other conversation, but I've never like, we could look at the numbers and talk about, the offense should be better with those guys on the floor together, but it's never been the two of them that feel clunky. It's always been the guard play with Rudy and like Rudy not quite being on the same page with D'Lo or with Ant last season. We're seeing an improvement in his chemistry with Ant, but there still is that chemistry with him and Cat. We saw the high-low lob that Cat threw him the other day. So I just think Rudy's in the right place at the right time. He looks like he's more with it. He looks like he's frankly just in better shape physically. I'm not saying he was out of shape last year. I think he was just worn down after coming off a Eurobasket. So I think it's a combination of all of those things. And Rudy's found his place in the offense. Like, they're never it will never make sense to force the ball to Rudy Gobert in any offense. But if he's a complementary piece of the offense and can be there to clean up offensive rebounds and score like he did a couple of times against Atlanta on Monday, if he's there to catch lobs like he did multiple times against in every game, as an ancillary part of the offense that's driven by Ant and Cat, that's exactly what they brought him in for. And the blocks too, like his block rate is back up to where, again, through 3 games, it's kind of crazy to be talking block rate, but it's where we need it, where the Wolves need it to be, where it was when he was a superstar with the Jazz. So if all those things continue to happen, we can't blame anything really on regarding the start on Rudy. It's everything else, and Rudy's playing the part that he's been expected to play since the Wolves traded for him.
And Jack, you were saying before the show, you're on the same page here as Ben.
Yeah, I am. And I think the most important thing is that Gobert is healthy. And I think Rudy would tell you himself that he was not healthy until after the All-Star break last year. And then even after the All-Star break, he had that ankle turn, and then he had the back issue that lingered into the playoffs, and also had a fist issue that got him suspended. But I mean, I think also the biggest thing with Gobert that you're talking about, Ben, is they're not forcing him the ball on the block. You know, they did at the end of the Toronto game, which was just a wonderful, exemplary play that kind of told you the story of the game in one play. But you really saw that in that Atlanta game. They were just like, let's have Rudy just set a ton of screens and go to the front of the rim, and we'll throw the ball up, and drew probably 3 or 4 fouls off of lobs alone, threw down 2 or 3 more. I think just the way that they're using him on offense is a lot smarter than last year. And even though like their offensive numbers are what they are, they're 23rd in offensive rating in the half court, which is obviously, unfortunate, but they are 5th in offensive rebound percentage in the half court, which is, they're rebounding almost a third of their misses, which is pretty remarkable. And then the other thing with Rudy Gobert that you really got to appreciate is like, the Timberwolves this year with him and Cat and everyone else, they're the first in defensive rebound rate in the half court. And that was something that I think they were 27th or 28th last year. So the fact that they're all the way up there, and they're 6th in half court defense. So, 6th overall in defense and 8th in half court defense. So, Rudy's given you everything that you could have hoped for when you traded for him back then. He's setting a ton of screens, hasn't gotten called for a single illegal screen yet. He's freeing up Ant to get into that mid range and operate from there. And then the other thing too with Rudy is like, you haven't seen him take a ton of dumb shots. He took that little, left hand baby hook, but outside of that, I haven't really seen him do anything that is kind of outside of kind of those guardrails that you were talking about, Ben. And also he's averaging 3.3 stocks per game, so steals and blocks, where he's only averaging 2.2 last year. So I think you need him to be more of a playmaker. That's exactly what he's doing. And he's just making life easier for everyone else that's out there with him.
Yeah, and I too have liked what I've seen from Rudy. But Reggie, this is, I guess, is the limitation too of Rudy, is that he can do all these wonderful things, but when the offense stagnates, he can't really do anything about it, right? It's not on him to wake the team up offensively. He can only do so much in that role. So again, not on him that the offense sputters. He can't do much about it with his skill set. So I guess you have to look elsewhere to find, where things are going wrong, but probably not Rudy. Rudy's been good.
Yeah, and I think this is where I was going at the top of the show with Cat. Like, it's so interesting because it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. It's like when the chips are down, if the Wolves need a basket, Cat's like, okay, I'm gonna hoist up another 3, and it it clanks off the rim, and you're just like, okay, long rebound goes to the other team, and they're in transition with it, and you're like, why is that the answer? It seems to be that like he's just gonna be like, he's gonna go down like shooting the 3, even if it's not falling. He's like, look, I can shoot my way out of this. And when you have a high volume shooter like Ant on the other side, Ant shooting 44% from the field, but like looking at some of these stat lines, it reminds you of like Kobe back in the day, like 12 for 27 for 30 points or something like that. It's like, yeah, he's getting points, but like it's not necessarily in the most efficient manner. And Ant is still kind of yet to put together one of these games where we're like, okay, yeah, like this is the next phase. This is the maturation of Ant. Like he's still a little too inconsistent from a shot making standpoint. So, I think the success of this team is going to hinge on their stars actually playing like stars. And it's great when you see Rudy doing what he should be doing. And Connolly's probably like, yes, this is why I did it. Thank God. But like when he's the only one that is efficient out there, like he's not a guy that you're relying on to get, a primary share of the buckets. Like you need Cat to step up. I need 25 to 30. I sound like Shaq now. I need 25 to 30 from the big man.
Just got to lower the voice. Yeah, there you go.
I need 25 to 30. I need him to dominate. He's got to dominate. And so I'm looking for Cat to be a little bit more aggressive out there and not just settle for a shot, but actually go get one if one is not falling.
Cat's biggest, like, I don't even know the word, but his biggest issue is that he wants to be the best big man shooter in the NBA. And so if you watch the Atlanta Hawks game down the stretch, there were times where at 6'10", 6'11", he's one-on-one, transition. Nobody is underneath the basket just yet. And instead of him just putting his big head down and running through the lane and just being a brute, he does a dribble and then like a step back. He's too big for that. And at some point, you got to be a bully. And I don't know if he has that in him. Like, we can say all we want about it, but some people just grew up different. Some people just have a different mindset. As much as we hate, because I hate him, DeJounte Murray, as much as we hate him and how he acts and how he over celebrates and how he's always super angry, somebody's got to do that. Like, Cat needs that. Cat needs that aggressive, like willing to just throw a basketball at somebody and pick up basketball for no reason type guy. Like, that's what Cat needs to be. But I looked at the turnovers too. When you look at third and fourth quarter for the Timberwolves with the Hawks, it was turnovers, but I think it was an exhausted Anthony Edwards. Like, some of his passes just didn't make sense. Some of the lanes he tried to throw through, it wasn't there. When you look at potential assists for Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley, they're both at 10. But then when you look at the assists generated from those potential assists, Anthony Edwards is at 5. He's at 3.7. Well, what does that mean? He's probably got to pass it to Anthony Edwards more versus those two being facilitators. Like, when Mike Conley passes to Cat, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, he might do something aggressive. He might not. Rudy Gobert is just being a cleanup man. He's doing a great job of when Cat misses or air balls. He's right there to get the rebound. He knows they're going to double team Cat. Let me just be around the rim so when he put this shot up, I can get the rebound. It seems like he's understanding now that Cat's going to take, like, after 4 dribbles, Cat's going to take the shot. Like, he's not passing it back out. So just be ready for the rebound. And Rudy Gobert's putting himself in a great position to realize that some people get the ball, and if you want to call the word sticky, it sticks. And Karl Anthony Towns, that's him down the stretch. When he gets the ball after 4 dribbles, it's sticking in his hands. He's going to force it. He's going to bang it, but he defers and falls away too much versus, like you said, putting his head down, driving, getting hacked, get hit, and go to the free throw line. Like, it's almost like he thinks that's not the way to do it. He wants a highlight. He wants a step back crossover, jumper fadeaway. He's got to be willing to just put his head down like Charles. Like, if you go back and watch old Charles Barkley film, he doesn't do anything special. He just dribbles and uses his body to put his body in between the player and the basket, and then he's going to lay it up or he's going to get a putback dunk. On fast breaks, he's not doing anything tricky. It's just dribble, crossover, and then lay it up. Basketball hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is we can see it on the internet now, and people want to put highlights out there and do all this jelly roll crap. Just play basketball, and that's where I think Cat is missing a little bit. But it's only 3 games. I don't want to overreact. It's only been 3 games, so they're going to figure this out, hopefully, but they shouldn't be 1 and 2 right now.
Good stuff, guys. We're going to get back into some good things we've seen in the first 3 games, and then we'll preview a tough week for the Wolves with the Nuggets tonight and the Celtics later in the week on the schedule. But first, a word from FanDuel. There is a fantastic new promotion going on right now at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers get $150 in bonus bets, and all you need to do is win a $5 money line bet. And hey, in the NBA, that's not the hardest thing to do. You find a lopsided game, You get one of those minus 400 lines. You find the best against the worst. You can do that. You can win a $5 money line bet. Get $150. Yes, $150 in your account if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. And for the record, the Nuggets are minus 134 in the money line tonight, just saying. That's at FanDuel, where they've got all the spreads, all the player props, all the over-unders, and plenty more. Future bets and plenty of other sports, too. You can maybe watch the last baseball game of the season tonight, wager on that. Rangers trying to close out the Diamondbacks. FanDuel.com/lockedon. And get in on the action. FanDuel, an official partner of the NBA. All right, guys. It seems bleak. Wolves are 1-2. Let some gettable games get away. Sounds like we're pretty happy with Rudy. Is there anything else we're pleased with in the early season? Let's start with Jack Borman.
Yeah, I think that, the Timberwolves had this vision that Kyle Anderson and Naz Reid would both be able to be these kind of co-sixth men, if you will, off the bench and still be the same, impactful players that they were last year with some slightly, smaller stints and less minutes overall. But it's hard to argue that those two guys haven't been two of the 4 or 5 most important and impactful players for the Timberwolves so far through 3 games. You look at what Kyle Anderson's done. He's averaging about 8 points a game, almost 5 assists in just 2 turnovers, and he's first on the team in terms of overall plus minus. And then for Naz Reid, averaging 16 and 4, shooting 53% from the field, 44% from 3, which is the most important thing there. And he's third in plus minus on the team so far this season. I think when you look at Kyle, you were a little worried, he's another guy that can't really shoot, isn't really going to space the floor. How does he fit more as a 3 rather than as a 4? Especially if Naz Reid's shooting isn't going to take a huge uptick. But I think he's really quelled a lot of those doubts with the way that he's passed the ball. And teams have tried to play zone defense against the Timberwolves quite a bit so far early in the season. And the Timberwolves have put him in the middle of the zone where he's just kind of picked defenses apart and done an excellent job of kind of determining, okay, should I look for my shot? Should I kind of turn around and get that little mid-range push shot, or should I try to kick it out and get more of the ball moving? And he's just been a linchpin for this team's half-court offense, which has been great. And then for Naz, we saw the way that Naz is moving around physically, especially in that game against the Heat at home, was just incredible. How light on his feet he is for what he looked like when he came into the league. And just how dramatic of a physical transformation he's undergone to be able to not only play the 4, but play the floor at a really, really high level. And I think kind of what Reggie and Ron are getting at, where Naz is a guy where, okay, if my shot's not falling or if I'm not wide open, I'm going to put my head down and get to the rim. And we've seen Naz do that quite a bit. And he's been really good playing out of the corner too. I mean, we saw in that Atlanta game, made a couple corner threes, and then Cat threw that awesome lob where he kind of dove from the corner for a nice alley-oop. So I think when you look at those two guys, the way that they've been playing and what they've unlocked for this team, really no matter who's been out there on the floor with them, I think that that's certainly one of the bigger positives that the Timberwolves are going to need to kind of get out of them if they want to kind of turn this around.
Yeah, and that's a good one. And Reggie, will go to you. Not overflowing with positives with this 1-2 start, and the bench hasn't done a lot outside of Naz. But do you have anything else that's kind of perked your ear up, or you're raised an eyebrow here in the early season?
I think it's a good deal that Jaden McDaniels is back on the floor. I think having him back is going to do wonders for this team. And his first game back, 24 minutes, 5 of 6 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3. That is important, because I've said on this show before, if he can be a consistent 3-and-D guy, that could really be helpful for what the Timberwolves want to do. He's going to bring it on the defensive end. But I think that's something that you like to see. At 3 boards, 2 assists, and a block. That's a solid 12 points. That's a solid stat line for him in his first game back. And I think if he can continue to just remain healthy and contribute in ways that he's good at, I think this is going to be a good effort for what the Timberwolves want to do. And look, it's tough. It's tough when the shots aren't falling. But like when you have guys who are out there hustling, Jack talked about Naz out there hustling, Kyle out there hustling. You bring the kill in, he's gonna hustle. Shake looks like a hustler out there. I think adding Jaden McDaniels to the mix, getting them some more synergy, getting them some more chemistry on the court together, I think is gonna work wonders for this team. But it's just good to see him out there earning that big hefty paycheck that he got. Never saw him smile as much than when he was talking about the new money he just got. So I think it's awesome to see him back out there. Hopefully he stays out there, no setbacks with the calf, and I think that he's going to help anchor the Wolves a little bit.
Yeah, a smile from Jaden. That's like seeing an eclipse. Hey, Ron, positives. Any other positives you've observed?
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Edwards is playing the most minutes he's played, but again, three games in, but 36.3 minutes. But when you look at the points, 25 points and still at 44% field goal percentage, rebounds at 7, assists at 5. So he's playing at a clip to say, like, I want to do everything I can do. I'm gonna put this team on my shoulders. I'm gonna go after it. Again, I think this is a guy that can be a 30-point scorer. Like he can score 30 points a game, but how do you do that? You save him from himself. You get the ball out of his hands at times so he can, I hate to say it, so he can just jog up the court, catch his breath, get set up and where his spot needs to be. But I think his play right now, when you watch him drive, when he gets the ball at the top of the key, he's not settling for just jumpers. He's making Michael Jordan type reverse layups. He's dashing to the lane. He's got the crossover step back, and then he doesn't settle for the step back. He crosses over again and gets to his spot at either free throw line, elbow. Like, this is a guy right now, as the kids would say, he's in his bag. Like, he's found a lot of one-on-one moves that are working for him, and then he's quick with it. He's been seeing the double team come in when he's driving, and that's when he's dishing it off. But again, I think this needs to be a Mike Conley-led team. We do know the illness or whatever, but the first 2 games, there's no answer to that. And so that's what you're going to need. But Anthony Edwards, to me, he looks like the star that everybody's wanting him to. He's knocking down open threes. He's taking shots at the right time. But I really like his one-on-one package. Like it right now seems like he is jumping is higher. He's jumping faster. He's getting up and he's not afraid of contact to make a layup. Even on the one, I forgot which one, but he bodied up and then made the layup. He didn't turn around and do the, hey, like, where's my foul? He laid it up, got bodied up, ran down the court. I think that's the big difference in the mentality too. Like, I'm not settling for a foul. I don't care if you refs don't call it. And I think what's going to happen down the stretch as he becomes more of this guy that drives and takes contact and still, like, he doesn't get knocked off his spot because he looks strong. Refs are going to notice that, and then they're going to start. And I think that's going to be up to Chris Finch to say, hey, keep an eye on this, man. They're banging my guy when he's landed up. That's when you're going to see the and one start to come his way. He hasn't earned that yet, where guys like Clay and Steph, they just do one little head nod and lay it up and they get the call. And same with LeBron. I hate to say it. But for him, he's not that guy. He's not going to flop. He's not going to fake it. He's just going to take the contact, lay it up strong. If you give it to him, you don't. He doesn't care. And I hope that carries over to Cat, where Cat stops looking for the foul and just play the game, because that's when those transition baskets are coming, when you miss a shot or you make it, but you're still down there arguing with a ref and your guy's taking off.
Yeah, the relentless, put your head down, finish at the rim version of Ant, definitely my favorite version of Anthony Edwards. Ben, round out this topic for me.
Yeah, I actually did the whole show on Wednesday on Locked On Wolves. Was most of the show, 2/3 of it anyway, was best things about the first week. One of them was Rudy. We talked a lot about him. Defensive rebounding, really encouraging. The Wolves are actually first in the league in defensive rebound rate right now, which is it's kind of crazy. I mean, the defense overall has been good, save for the second half against Atlanta, which was atrocious, but that lends itself to more missed shots, more opportunities for rebounds. But that's where rebound rate comes in and kind of takes out some of that noise. It's been legitimately good, and the Wolves have been one of the worst defensive rebound rate teams in the league the last couple of years. And some guys are still rebounding below where you'd like to see them, but Ant has continued to rebound the ball extremely well. He had that really big rebound game in Toronto and another strong one in Atlanta. Cat's back to where he needs to be in terms of defensive rebound rate through 3 games. Last year, he saw a pretty big dip, a disjointed year for Cat, obviously, but That's helped a lot. And then also getting rid of guys that were allergic to rebounding, like D'Angelo Russell and Jalen Noel, is going to help a lot too. Giving their minutes to guys like Troy Brown Jr., who didn't play on Monday, which is another topic, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and guys that are going to be better from the backcourt in terms of rebounding. That's where they're going to make up some of this gap. I mean, they were bottom 5 each of the last 2 years. I think second to last 2 years ago in defensive rebounding, and still were bad at it last year with Rudy Gobert in the fold. So it's going to be guys rebounding for their positions in the backcourt, and Mike Conley's a solid rebounder for his spot. Same with Alexander Walker and Troy Brown, and some of these guys that can hold their own. And then Cat's got to be where he needs to be, and that's a huge part of defense, right? The only way you can end a possession is if the other team makes a shot or turns it over, or you get a defensive rebound. So that's going to feed itself into having a good defense. That to me is probably the biggest thing. Biggest thing. The highs on offense have been good, as we've talked about. Like the good moments have been really good, and the defense overall has been pretty good too, save for that second half against Atlanta. So I think the main one for me is probably defensive rebounding, and we'll see if that remains true, but it's an encouraging early start.
T-Wolves try to get back on track against the world champs tonight. We're going to preview that game. Quick reminder that you can hear that game on the SiriusXM app. Find the SXM app in your app market and search Wolves. You can get Alan Horton on the play-by-play. You can also find the Locked On Sports Minnesota programming there as well. The Ron Johnson Show, Friday Roundtables, Minnesota Football Party, and of course this show, the Minnesota Basketball Party, all part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Nuggets tonight, Jazz, and then Celtics to follow. Ron Johnson. Jokic is coming to town. The Joker. Wolves are 2.5-point underdogs. Do they have a chance against the champs?
They have a chance because they're a better team than the Lakers. And I'm going off the Lakers game because I like LeBron. And I was excited to see LeBron get his chance and get his get back, as they say, against the Nuggets, and him and Anthony Davis in interviews. Everybody's like, hey, what do you think about the Nuggets celebrating after they beat you and celebrating after they won the championship? And he's like, oh, our time's coming. Oh, you'll see. Our time's coming. And then they get like beat down. And so it's like, what was this? Where's the time? Nobody saw the time coming. Like, I mean, I don't care what kind of watch you got. That wasn't the time. And so, but what I noticed was the Lakers were a two-headed monster. It wasn't a lot of spacing on the floor. D'Angelo Russell at times looks like he was worried about the baddies in the front court or on the court, because he wasn't really like he was looking over at the side, and he's like, okay, this is my moment now. And he's crossing over. It's like, dude, Anthony Davis is in the post. Just pass the ball. And so as a team, I just don't feel like they have the chemistry right now, where the Timberwolves seem to have a little bit more chemistry. That's what the Nuggets are. You can't name a star. I mean, you got Murray and you got Jokic, but the rest of those guys to me aren't stars. Like, Aaron Gordon, like they're not stars. They all play their role, and that's why they won a championship. And that's why what you saw last year. So how can the Timberwolves do this? Well, you got to throw multiple bodies at Jokic. Multiple bodies. You got to be able to throw Cat at him. You got to throw Rudy at him. You got to throw Naz at him. Like, you got to throw multiple bodies at him and wear him down. This needs to be a playoff basketball atmosphere where he feels you every time down the court, whether it's an elbow to the ribs, whether it's a bump. And then when you have the chance to get a ball, whether you're building a lead or you're trying to sustain a lead or you're coming back, every offensive possession has to be efficient. And what does that mean? More than one pass. Like, you can't come down and just like ISO ball like James Harden. That does not win games long-term against good teams. You have to move around, make them move, get them out of position. Everybody knows when the defense rotates, eventually somebody's going to have a cleaner shot, and that's what the Timberwolves need to play. And then play deep into the play clock. Don't be so caught up in getting shots off quick, thinking you need multiple, possessions and so on and so forth. Know that you can get down and then be able to use the clock, because that the time is your friend, and the more time you can keep the ball away from them, the better chance you have of beating them. But that's the problem, is the Nuggets have so many weapons and they have so many team first guys. It's a tough team to beat.
Ben, can the Wolves beat them?
Absolutely, they can. I mean, the Nuggets certainly look every bit the part as the best team in the league so far this year. We're 4 games in. They've played 4 games so far, and they're 4-0. They don't have a whole lot of weaknesses, and that's just being honest about it. I mean, actually, to Ron's multiple points he made. I actually, those were my keys to the game. What he said is get into Jokic. The Wolves did actually a better job than anyone else last year in the postseason on Jokic specifically. If you go back and look, he obviously had a couple really good games. He's still Jokic. You're never going to completely, unless he just has an off night, you can't just beat Nikola Jokic. There's a reason he's a multi-time MVP. But the way to go about at least attempting to do that is to get into him, be a little bit more physical, make him at least work for it. I know teams like to try and make him a scorer. It doesn't usually work because he's just that good, but that's still a better strategy than playing off him, letting him facilitate. Everybody's got to stay on their assignments defensively. They can't fall asleep off the ball because the Nuggets are so good at moving without the ball. And he's such a good passer to cutters and guys cutting back door, and just, they're so good at off ball movement. And so that's probably the biggest thing, but also, again, another point that Ron made is on offense, move the ball. Like, don't get stuck with a sticky basketball. Don't get stuck in isolation. At least make them move their feet. And then that lends itself to getting back in transition. The Nuggets, similar to the Heat, don't play very fast. But any team can play fast against the Wolves because they're so bad in transition. So play solid. Don't turn it over on offense. Play solid. Stay home on defense. Stay on your assignments. Don't gamble. And you'll have a fighting chance. I mean, the Nuggets have shot the ball lights out so far this year. Some of their other peripheral numbers on offense aren't that great. They don't have a high 3-point rate. They're not getting to the free throw line. They're just making shots, which means they're getting a lot of open shots at the rim because of their back cuts, because of Jokic's passing. And they're just making shots. So at some point that might come back down to earth a little bit. They have an effective field goal percentage as a team over 60%. And the best way to create an environment when that could happen is all of the above, staying home defensively, not falling asleep off the ball, moving the ball in offense, getting back in transition, just playing a clean game, and you'll have a fighting shot.
Yeah, the credit to the Wolves too, last year, they rarely let things fully unravel. They would always play they would toss in a great game at home against a good team to kind of stop the bleeding sometimes. And this is, Jack, another good opportunity for them to do that. And hey, Cat told us in the media, he said that we're actually a more impressive team than the Nuggets because we just got everybody together. Now they've had a full off season. So really, I mean, this could be the Wolves' night.
Are you trying to kill Ron? My guys over there are just dying.
Because that was the most preposterous statement. He said that numerous times now, and I'm trying to figure out where he got that from. Like, come on now.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think the Nuggets are beatable. I think, they're certainly a good team, but let's not act like they're invincible here. The Timberwolves, like Ben said, did a better job than any team in the playoffs last year defending Nikola Jokic. Jokic shot 8 of 29 from the field in Game 5, which was his worst game shooting from the field in almost 4 years. And even more impressive, I mean, if you break that down, he was 3 of 8 from 3, so he was 5 of 21 from inside the arc. And that was almost exclusively because of the work that Karl Anthony Towns did in one-on-one defense against Nikola Jokic. And that was kind of that was the second game where they had Karl guard Jokic and kind of had Rudy Gobert play this free safety role behind them, where he was kind of able to be there to block shots and clean stuff up if Jokic, was able to get around Cat and get shots off. But even then, they made things really, really tough for him. And the main thing the Nuggets did in those games was they just made enough threes, and Jamal Murray made a ton of really crazy, difficult shots to lift them in that closeout Game 5. And now you have Jaden McDaniels back on Jamal Murray. That was something that they didn't have, and the Timberwolves got next to no production from their bench. And then you also think about the fact that Kyle Anderson got hurt in Game 4 and did not play in Game 5 because of that eye injury that we now see him wearing glasses because of. So the Timberwolves have a lot more options available to them in terms of how they can go about defending the Nuggets, as well as, guys coming off the bench that they didn't have. They didn't have Naz. And there's a lot of question marks on that Denver Nuggets bench. They lost Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, who were two really, really important pieces for them. Replacing them with Hopkins native Zeke Naji and Peyton Watson now. And Peyton Watson's played pretty well, but again, we'll see how if he's able to continue that. But the Timberwolves bench should be able to chip away at whatever lead the starters create and keep this thing close into the fourth quarter. And we've all seen what Anthony Edwards has done against this Nuggets defense in fourth quarters of big time games. So I think it'll be a great, fun test. Hopefully a good showing for the home crowd, and certainly, Sam, like you said, a great opportunity for them to get back on track like they often did against good teams last year.
Some quality analysis from Ron, Ben, and Jack. And now, Reggie, I put you on the spot as the last in line. Do the Wolves win tonight? Can't wiggle out of this one.
Nah. But I will say, for their keys to success, the very first one, and Ron is gonna like this one. The very first one, they need to pray. They need to go ahead and pray and make sure that they're right with the Lord and see how it goes from there. No, but
somebody's got to have some text though. Like, just get a tech. Just go punch Jokic in the ribs. Like,
I want to see Kat do it. Just his
not
inner
illegally,
KG comes out.
Not like
I mean, Rudy's right there. We already saw it last year. I mean,
Rudy's got sharp elbows.
Right. That's what I mean. Like a legal punch. Just
get
a little tech.
No, I need Kat to do it. I think he needs to spend a little bit more time with Kevin Garnett and just like unlock the dog in him. But no, I think to everybody's point, move the ball, keep the ball moving, because like when it gets sticky and you got guys are playing hero ball out there, Cat's just jacking up a three, Ant's trying to, go heat check and he's just, doing things that maybe doesn't flow well with his game or the game in general. Like, you don't want to see that, especially against the Nuggets team that will like outright just embarrass you. Like, they will come out and put it on you. And I think what's encouraging, I think their last game against the Jazz, like MPJ played 19 minutes. He only had 8 points. But they got 21 from Aaron Gordon. I don't know how consistent that particular thing is going to be for the Nuggets. Like, if you're getting 20 plus points from Aaron Gordon on a given night, it's just like, all right, fine, you got it. Like, God bless. But I think if they could, I think. So you asked me if they win. I don't know that they win tonight, but I do think that this is going to provide them some good tape moving forward. Like, watch what Murray and Jokic do on the pick and roll. And I continue to say this, but watch what they do. And I think Finch could put on that game tape and be like, hey, Kat, Ant, watch this. This is how this offense can work if you guys buy into this approach. And I think that a game this early on in the season could be a helpful teaching tool for them to try to take their game to the next level as they, play this stretch. Utah next, Boston coming up. Like, I think there is a chance to learn in this game and from this game, and just give it your best effort. It's the NBA; anything can happen. But you asked me if they win. I don't know that they do tonight.
It'll be a good one at Target Center for sure. And that's the show. We talk Wolves every Wednesday here in the Minnesota Basketball Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thank you, Reggie, Ron, Jack, and Ben. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks to our everydayers who tune into Locked On Sports Minnesota all week long. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on the Minnesota Football Party. Until then, see ya.